Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining Kitchen Rush.
So there are 8 different scenarios in the rulebook that lead you to being able to play the full game. I'm going to explain through each of the scenarios or each of the differences on the scenarios with just adding the extra additional thing, and hopefully by the end of that you'll know how to play the entire game. So this is how the board is set up for the first scenario. In this entire game, what you're trying to do is seat the incoming guests.
You'll notice that the guest has a type of plate that is necessary for that particular dish, the different elements of food that need to go into that dish, and then the cooking time. There's also a coin marking down the bottom which you can ignore for the moment. I'll get to that when I get to the element of the game that has that included.
So in order to do anything, you are using your sand timer and you flip that over. Let's go here, for example. Once this sand timer runs out, then he can be moved. Until that sand timer runs out, you cannot move it. That spot releases 2 more potential guests that can be seated. These 3 spots all work the same, and they are take one of these guests and seat them at your restaurant. So Red has put his timer there. He might go for this one and seat it. Once you seat the guest, you straight away take the shape of plate that they are on. And then Green can do the same so they can keep going. But I'll just keep using Red for the moment, just so you know what's happening. Once this has run out, you may choose to do that again if you wish and take another one, or you may just keep going on to the next section. But the next thing that will need to happen is you'll need to get food. So from here, he needs to take 2 meat and 1 bread. You can take as many food elements out of that pantry as you wish. So having 2 guests, you could fill up both of their plates with the appropriate materials. But you can't take any more than is necessary. You're trying to get exactly what is marked there. Okay, once that sand timer has run out, you'll then cook that, which literally looks like turn that over onto the cook plate and pushing that down 1. With this dish, he's trying to get down to level 3. So he's cooked that down to level 1 at the moment. Once that runs out, he'll then flip it over and go to 2. And then once that runs out again, he'll flip it over and go to 3. That dish has now been served. The first scenario is won by having 2 dishes for each player, all correctly served. And that is it. Okay, on the second scenario, I should have said that the first scenario should have gone for 4 minutes 30. Every scenario after this will go for 4 minutes per shift. So it's 1 shift, and what has changed with this is firstly the number of plates. When you are serving, if you serve someone who needs a triangle plate, you can use the next size up. If you wish, it's not a great idea to do it, but you can. There's a card showing you the different size plates and what their order is. So if they need to use a small plate, you could use a medium plate instead, but you could not use a large plate. The other element that has shifted relatively dramatically is that you need to also include the spices or herbs, which are these cubes, are in the bag. When you do this action, there are 2 spots there. You can take everything out of the bag if you wish, into your hand, grab what you need, and then put it back. The bag is just there so that you are guessing what is over on the herb garden, and that will become important in future scenarios. And the other thing is you have regular guests coming in, which are the green ones, instead of just your friends, which are these brown ones. Other than that, the gameplay is exactly the same, and you also have 2 sand timers each. So if he goes here to bring this guy over, he could then, while waiting for that sand time to go down, move into one of the pantries to grab the stuff. He also needs to get the herb for that guy, which is a red one, which is in the bag, but he can do that at any time. So what he could do is flick that onto the cooking. Then while that's cooking, he can go to the herbs, get out the red herb and place that on there. You just need the cube on there by the end of the cooking or by the end of the shift. It's not necessary to go on before you start cooking. And then once that's run out, you turn that there, move down. Notice he's got both of them cooking the same dish, it's just been able to push him down further. Okay, scenario 3, you'll notice there are some dirty dishes here, and the idea of this is that when you take that action, you can clean 3 of the dishes. It's up to you which 3 you clean, but you can clean 3 of the dishes and make them available for other players. The other element that has come into play is the office. So on the office, you're getting a money in every time that you take a new guest in. So if you take this action and flick over 2 new guests, you would get 2 extra money into the office for doing so. So that's 2 more money straight over there. At the end of the shift, if you have managed to serve this customer everything they wanted and cooked to the correct time, you would get 3 more money. So the whole idea of this shift is to make money for a 2-player game, which is set up as you're looking for 22 money by the end of the shift. Okay, scenario number 4 has a extra van turned over. Notice there are no spots in this, which means that everyone at the table could go here at the same time if they wished. There's no specific number that's needed on that. And what we're doing up here is we're purchasing more goods. So suddenly you see this money thing is coming in. You only have 2 or 4 of each product, depending on what it is, in each of the 2 pantries. So if he wishes to get more goods, say he's looking for cheese, he'll put his timer up here and he can get 5 pieces of cheese and distribute them between both of the pantries. He doesn't need to do both pantries. He could put them all in one if he wishes, or he could drop some here and some there, depending on how the game's going and what they're doing. The other things you could do is 3 of the small spices or 2 of the large spices by going here. So he's only got the option of 1 of those actions, but the bag only has 1 of each spice. So you're going to get to the point where you need extra spices because of the cards coming through, so they'll need to be added to there as well. This one also has the challenging patrons, which are these guys. They're a little bit harder to get finished, but they bring in more money. And this scenario also has 2 shifts. So when you get to the end of the first shift, if you have a patron who hasn't been completed yet, as they were seated, they were given a drink, which cost them 1 money. If they're still sitting there waiting for their meal to come in, you will give them a free drink, which will cost you 1 money, but you can continue to work on their meal on the next half of the game. So it's suddenly an 8-minute game instead of a 4-minute game. Once again, you're playing for money, and the number of players tells you how much money you would need for each. I'll let you look on the book for that. For 2 players, it's 24 coins is really what you're looking for. I may not have said previously, but if you make a mistake on a dish, all of the goods in that dish will need to be returned. The patron stays with you. You'll need to redo their dish, but you've got to get rid of all the goods back to the bank. Not back into here, but away from the rest of the game. Okay, scenario 5, we've got another pantry comes in. This pantry holds bread and pasta, and the other 2 hold half of the other ingredients, which means that if you are trying to make a dish, say for example this one, that needs meat as well as the pasta and cheese, you're going to need to go here and you need to go here. So you need to go to 2 different pantries to gain the appropriate stuff for that meal. The other thing that's new in this scenario is you have to pay for each of the workers. Each of the workers, which is one of your sand timers, costs 3 money each. So in a 2-player game, there are 4 workers running around, which means you're going to need to pay 12 money to each of them at the end of the shift. Notice that's the end of the shift, not the end of the game. So if you're playing a game that has 2 shifts, you're going to need to pay 24 money over the entire game to keep these guys working. If you can't pay those salaries, you lose straight away. You win the game if you have 1 money left at the end of the game after paying those salaries. So scenario 6 brings into play those little stars that are at the bottom of these patrons. There's another board here. So at the end of the shift, any patrons with the stars that have been served the correct meal will push your reputation up by 1. If that patron has been seated but not served their correct meal yet by the end of the shift, that will push your popularity down by 1. There's a mark here that keeps track of the 2 shifts that are going on. The other thing that's new is this starting part. What can happen if I put it there is I could take 2 more cards and obviously get the 2 more money for taking the 2 more cards. What I can now do is remove these 2 patrons, because I didn't want them, and bring in 2 new patrons. Now they don't give you the money because they've seen guys get cost out, so they're not going to buy a drink, but that's a way for you to move through the deck looking for patrons that you actually want. The other thing you can do is here you can take a patron as normal. Once you've fed them, so assuming you've got all the stuff on the plate and they're totally fed to cook to the correct number, you could use this spot to flip this card over to show that that patron is finished up and fed, and they will tip you 1 extra money. And that's how you'll get a little bit of extra money through the game. The other thing to bear in mind is this scenario is won by having at least 1 coin in the office, but also by being at 3 reputation. If you have someone who's unfed, you'll lose reputation. You don't need to lose money for them. So that's anyone of these customers that have a star on the bottom. If they're not fed, you'll lose a reputation. If they are fed, you'll gain a reputation. But you won't lose a coin for having to give them a free drink. You just lose the reputation instead. Okay, so for scenario 7, we've flipped this over. There are now 4 shifts happening. As you move the reputation marker forward, there are rewards. Those rewards are in these cards. So when you get to here on a 2-player game, or there if you're 3, or there if you're 4, there's a number of hats on that top corner. You would flip over 1 card. This will happen at the in-between shift stage. This card will now last for the rest of the game, unless this drops backwards because of undelivered meals, in which case that card will just flip back to the top of the deck. And that gives you an extra bonus rule for the rest of the game while that is available. You'll also notice there are some different types of patrons. These guys need 2 dishes built for them. So when you take them, you need to make sure you take both of the plates. So that would need 1 of those plates and a triangle plate, or you can still go for that 1 plate level higher if you need to. On each plate, you need to get the appropriate materials and cook them each to the appropriate spots in order for you to get the 2 reputation and the 5 money. At the end of the round, you can still do the putting a timer over there to flip these guys over and get 1 extra money as tip, or you can throw guys out as previously discussed. The other thing is, if at the end of the shift you are unable to pay one of your workers, they will go on strike. So they will go off to the side of the table, not used. In order to get them back, someone is need to go to this spot, pay 3 money. So there's only 2 that money couldn't do it, but if there was 3 there, pay the 3 money for the worker to come back to work, and he can be used straight away. And the game now goes for 4 shifts. And the 8th scenario brings in these elements that can be purchased or gained. You'll also notice there's some locks and things that aren't working. They're all in these cards. In order to get one of these cards to happen, you need to pay the money that's in the middle of it. So this one would need 4 money, this one would need 2. You would need to place a timer onto that to then gain the element in. These white sand timers are able to be used by any of the players at the table. Whoever moves it will be doing an action for themselves, not an action for someone else. But bear in mind that each of these guys is going to need to be paid their 3 money per shift. There are 4 shifts happening at the game, so it's just something to be very aware of. The other things that could come out of this is remove those 2 locks, so no one can touch this pantry at the moment until those 2 locks are gone. Another one is remove that or fix that oven top. So there's only 3 available until that has been fixed. And the 4th card is to gain 1 extra of each of the plates. I believe there's some extra stuff that goes on with the game once you've got comfortable with scenario 8, but this is how to play the game. So please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplaned, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.